it's Lacey, the Catholic Icing Lady. So recently I took a poll on the Catholic Icing Instagram page and I asked, are you praying the rosary with your kids? Yes or no? And interestingly enough, I got 34% that said no. So I am never, ever, ever here to judge you. Like never. But Catholic Icing was created to help you. So for anyone who isn't praying the rosary with your kids and you wish you were, today I want to share 10 tips with you for praying the rosary with kids. So I have this rosary basket, and when it's rosary time, we bring it out and the kids get to dig through it and choose whichever rosary they want. So first of all, you want to remove anything that's like really beautiful or delicate and that you don't want them to snap, like something like this or like something like this. So yeah, if you have any really beautiful ones and you're letting children choose, move those to the side before beginning. So my first tip for you is have some child-friendly rosaries in your basket. Now, we do have a really big variety of plastic rosaries. I have them in pretty much every color. I have some that appeal to girls, some that appeal to boys. Yes, plastic rosaries. They're practically indestructible. And if you're looking for what my rules are for starting preschoolers on the rosary, be sure to check out my video on beginning rosaries for preschoolers. Now, pretty much any Catholic kid generally starts on something like this. I would say that these are indestructible, but my kids broke one once. So in the rosary basket, I have some rosaries that we have made together. The kids really like to use the ones that they made themselves sometimes. So as long as they have the right number of beads on them, I'm good with it. And even if it's just close, whatever. We also have Lego rosaries. One in boy colors and one in girl colors. So these are very popular. It's really cool because you can take them and you can either stick the Hail Mary Legos together as you pray each prayer, or you can sit and break them apart as you pray each prayer. We also have a few glow-in-the-dark rosaries. The kids also think this is really cool, so it's in here too. These are some of my favorite. Years ago, Melanie from Trendy Traditions made these rosaries for my kids, and each one of them has their name in it with beads because they're made out of titanium wire. These things have survived a house for Catholic kids for years and years and years, and they are still in great condition. And my kids love to have a rosary that's just theirs. No, that one says Violet. It's mine. We also have this really cool one that's little pieces of rock from actually the Holy Land. Also in my rosary basket, we have these really cool rosaries, and they are made out of pressed rose petals, I think. So they smell like roses. Can you guys see that? And you keep them in the little box so that it keeps the smell. And the kids just love those too because whatever is fun, cool, appealing to the senses, they love it. I do have some really beautiful rosaries that are my favorites that are not currently snapped. And if the kids want to use these, I definitely ask them to be gentle. Another broken one. So, when you're saying the rosary with kids, it's gonna happen. So just go ahead and tell yourself, it happens. I also have some interesting things in here that are for smaller kids, if they're not maybe quite rosary aged yet. I have some Christmas ornaments that I've gotten that are holograms of religious pictures. I keep some tiny prayer books, rosary books in here for the kids to just be able to look through while we pray the rosary. I like this one a lot. I have some other little religious trinkets and things in here that rosaries came out of. Sometimes I pick these up when I go to conferences and stuff, little teeny tiny books. I use them for things like putting in stockings or Easter baskets, and then it's kind of what do you do with these little teeny tiny books? So I put them in the rosary basket. I also have a teeny tiny little Bible that actually has like all the stuff printed in. So basically the idea is anything that's new to kids that's not out all the time is interesting to them and keeps them occupied. So this is the kind of concept you're using when it's like, oh, it's raining outside, so let's get out the Play-Doh, but you don't leave it out all the time. And then the Play-Doh keeps them really busy because they're not used to having it. So the idea is to have little teeny religious trinkets. Sometimes I have little tiny plastic statues in here, crucifixes and things. It's tangled up. So if you just have little stuff in there that they get to touch and see and mess with that they don't usually have access to, it just keeps them busy during Rosary time, right? Because it's stuff that they don't usually get to touch and play with. Okay, tip number 2. Do not expect a larger attention span from your child than your child is able to give. So if developmentally they're at a stage where they can give 5 minutes of attention, don't expect more from them than they have to offer, because that is just a recipe for frustration from everyone. Tip number 3, teach the Rosary prayers. Now I know what you're thinking. Duh, Lacey, of course they need to know the Rosary prayers. But the thing is, yes, they hear the prayers and they learn them when you're just praying the Rosary together, but they don't always know what all the words are. Sometimes they're just repeating the sounds that they've heard. You know, like when you hear your favorite song on the radio and you sing it and you sing it and sing it, and then later on you read the lyrics and it turns out you've been singing it completely wrong. You don't want your kids praying the wrong words. So once they get to be old enough, it's good to either do some copy work or make sure that they read through them, or that you go through the prayer word by word at some point and make sure that they actually know the words that they're saying. Tip number 4, display your rosary somewhere in your home. I'm going to suggest having some around on your home altar. I will link in the comments to how to put together your home altar, but I think it's great to have the rosaries out where people can see them and touch them and use them and have them when they need them. Tip number 5, work to make positive associations with the rosary. So make sure your rosary time isn't just spent like yelling at your kids to like, be still, sit down, be quiet. I mean, if we make our kids absolutely hate rosary time, we're kind of defeating the purpose of what we're trying to do here. Tip number 6, make it a prayerful atmosphere. I seriously have such better luck saying the rosary with children if I will put everyone in a calm mood, light a candle, possibly turn on some music, have everyone bless themselves with holy water. It's just doing some things to put everyone in the mindset that this is what we're doing now. Here we are transitioning into saying the rosary. Tip number 7, try to start them with just 1 decade. I mean, if you have kids and you haven't been praying the rosary with them, sitting down and saying all like 50, however many prayers, seems a little bit unreasonable, because you're expecting for their attention level to go from 0 to 60 in like 3.2 seconds, and it's just not reasonable. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is just start with like 1 decade of the rosary. I went through a whole phase where every single time we got in the car, we prayed 1 decade of the rosary together. I had a little 1 decade rosary, actually also from Trendy Traditions, on my keychain, and I would just use it as we were driving. They were a captive audience. They were totally strapped in with nowhere to go. So they got to learn how to sit through 1 decade of the rosary at a time. Tip number 8, try a shortened version of the rosaries. I like this tip a lot because it's a little more rosary-like than just praying 1 decade at a time. You go around the whole rosary, but instead of saying all 10 Hail Mary prayers in each decade, you just say 2 or 3. Over time, you add more and more Hail Marys to each decade, so your children slowly build up their attention span for the rosary, and eventually you're praying a whole rosary together. Which brings us to tip number 9. Try saying an entire rosary with your kids, right? Like you have the cool stuff, you're ready to go, you've been building their tolerance, so let's give it a try. What's the worst that could happen? You want to set a reasonable goal for trying to pray the rosary with your family, so only you know what your schedule is. Only you know what your children's tolerance is. Don't let other people make you feel bad or guilty because you don't pray the rosary as often as they do and your children aren't as well behaved as theirs are. Like, you know your personal situation better than anyone else. So if what's reasonable for you is to try for once a week or for once a month or just to do one during Advent or during Lent, like set a family goal that is reasonable for your family and give it a try. Number 10, what you've all been waiting for. Here it goes. Whether or not your children are good, whether or not your children need improvement, just pray the rosary anyway. If they won't pray with you, just pray it in their presence. They will absorb it through osmosis. Will they absorb it through osmosis? Is that a thing? In case you're leading by example, so maybe someday when they're adults, because their mom used to pray the rosary when they were around, maybe they'll do it and pray the rosary around their kids when they're adults too. I hope you enjoyed these rosary tips. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and come back each Friday for a brand new Catholic How to Draw. Definitely subscribe. You don't want to miss the next thing, and I will see you guys next time. Walk the narrow path.